All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast, 49ers post-game edition. The 49ers defeat the Bears by a score of 38-13 in Santa Clara. And this was a really good win. This was a dominant win, a convincing win, a win that was much needed for a team that's been struggling throughout the entire season. And in a lot of ways, they won the game in every facet. And I'll kind of get into that here. But ultimately, just to be able to come out, get a win like this in a convincing fashion and build a little bit of momentum while you approach the last stretch of the season here is huge. So first half was where this team took control of the game and really didn't look back. I mean, the Bears might as well have not been out there. So score at the end of one was 24-0. The Niners had completely run away with the game in the first half. 4 total yards for the Bears to the Niners 319 in the first half. On the ground, the Niners had 65 yards to the Bears 7. So the Niners were dominating on both sides of the football. You only allow the Bears to put up 4 yards on you. And then on the other side of things, you're completely stretching out this defense and forcing them to get outside of their game plan. Let me talk about the game plan for the Bears going into this game, because it was apparent early on that they had put an emphasis on run stopping. They didn't want us running the football at all. And it's interesting because the Niners are down running back 1 and 2 with CMC and Jordan Mason out. We have Isaac Guerrero out there who's, essentially taking running back 1 reps this week because, well, we don't have anybody else behind him. And you get Patrick Taylor Jr., who goes in there and takes 7 carries for the game as well. But, the emphasis was not running the football in this one. It was really throwing the ball. And looking at Brock Purdy, he finished the game with 325 yards for 2 touchdowns. He was 20 of 25 through the air. Played a almost perfect game. And that's something you need to see out of a guy who is rumored to be your franchise quarterback, the guy who you're going to pay this offseason, which is the rumor. This is the kind of game you need to see from him. This is the kind of consistent play that you need to see from him. It's something we saw from him when this team was fully healthy, right? And obviously this week he has a lot of his weapons, but obviously you still don't have a few of them out there. But you play a really consistent, really put together game like that, and it makes you feel comfortable about paying a guy a little bit more and a little bit sooner than you otherwise might not if he played a poor game. So really good stuff from Purdy today, and you definitely needed to see that. So you dominate this team on both sides of the football in the first half, and where the offense really took off was George Kittle having 5 catches for 138 yards. What I don't understand is why the Niners don't do this more. George Kittle is one of the best tight ends in football, and he's shown it year in and year out. But the scheme isn't built around GK. It's just not. You involve him when you have set up your offense to do so, but if it's not set up that way, meaning you're running the ball and you're finding wide receiver 1 and 2, then you open up the space for George Kittle. If that's not going, you don't see George Kittle get involved much. Brock balling out at that point. He was 16 of 18 in the first half for 258 yards, 2 touchdowns. He should have had a rushing touchdown there close to the end of the half, but Ricky Pearsall got called for holding that brought it back. But ultimately, that was nice to see you have that 24-0 advantage. Then you're going into the second half with the objective of just take care of the football, don't turn it over. Special teams needs to play a clean game, and just don't take your foot off the accelerator. And the Niners kind of did take their foot off the accelerator in some ways, but at the same time, they didn't necessarily hit the brakes either. And that was what was key. So ultimately, the second half, you finished 38-13, and it's more of the same. When I look at the final stats of the game, the Niners finished with 452 yards, 321 through the air, 131 on the ground. Defensively, you held the Bears to 162 yards in total offense, 94 pass and 68 rush. So they just couldn't get much going, and Caleb had to scramble a lot in this one to get opportunities for his team. And he did a really good job in a lot of ways, but he was also sacked 7 times. And that's something I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes when I hand out my game balls. But defensively, the game plan going in was set and it was clear. And it was clean. It was executed the way it's supposed to be. So Nick Sorensen setting up this game defensively from a schematic standpoint was very, very well done. And execution wise by the 49ers players was even better. And that's something that you need to see more of, especially as you play, you got the Rams on Thursday, and then you've got the Lions and you've got the Cardinals. Like there's games left in here that if you can get those games, obviously you aren't necessarily set up, and obviously you play the Dolphins, right? But you're not fully set up for the playoffs because you're banking on Seattle losing, you're banking on the Rams losing. But at the very least, you have a little bit of momentum going into the offseason, and you feel a little bit better about where this team might be, considering they figured things out, even regardless of the injuries to very key players throughout this season. So really good game from the 49ers, and it was nice to see, considering all the just tough losses that this team has seen this year. And from a fan perspective, to just be able to sit back on the couch this week and enjoy a clean, not close from any standpoint, football game, it felt really good. So I'll get into my game balls here. First game ball I'm going to hand out is to George Kittle, who had 106 yards through the first 17 minutes of the game, and it just really didn't look back at all. Finished with 151 yards for 6 receptions, no touchdowns, which is a little bit surprising considering what they saw from him early on. And the game plan did change up as the game went on. Obviously, Guerrero saw more touches in the second half than the passing game was in the first half. But it was a really good game from Kittle, and that's something that you need to see from him as you don't have these weapons moving forward. You need to have somebody step up like that and really lead this team in a lot of ways. And I thought the collective effort of Brock Purdy and Kittle in this one were awesome to see. And Purdy doesn't get a game ball from me this week, but he nonetheless played a phenomenal game. Like I said, finished 20 of 25 through the air for 325 yards and the 2 touchdowns in the first half. So really solid stuff from him. Second game ball is going to Kyle Shanahan. He had a great game plan going into this one. Had an answer for just about every look that the Bears were giving the Niners on both sides of the football, but specifically on the offensive end. And the scheme was free-flowing and everybody ate today. And where I really knew I was going to give a game ball to Kyle was when he went for it on 4th down with just over 6 minutes left in the game, instead of settling for the field goal. And that one really just iced the game for us because they got that first down, they kept rolling, and they got it done. And that was, finishing the drive off in the right way. It was convincing to see. It felt like Kyle wasn't just playing the safe game. He was ensuring that this team is going to win offensively and not bank on, the defense making plays when they may have to. So really good stuff from Kyle Shanahan and ultimately the coaching staff on just a really, really good scheme going into this one. Last game ball is going to go to the D-line. 7 total sacks on the day. But I got to give more credit to Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos, who stepped up with 5 sacks out of those 7. And they were getting pressure and getting home on Caleb Williams, and they made him feel uncomfortable all game long. Caleb didn't finish with he finished with no turnovers whatsoever, so he played a very clean game, as he has for the majority of this season. And it was really good to see the Niners put that pressure on, considering you didn't have Nick Bosa out there. That was something I was worried about in this one, was you don't have Nick Bosa. Can you generate pressure, make Caleb feel, that pressure, and make him, potentially throw a pick, make a mistake, or at the very least just feel rattled and be a little bit off. And that was ultimately what happened with Caleb and the Bears in this one. They couldn't get anything going in the first half. It really put them out of the game. And when you can put a team out in the first half like that and force them to switch up their scheme, that's huge. That's something that, at that point, good luck getting back in a game if you have to get away from what you've, planned for all week long playing this team. So really dominant win, really good win for the 49ers. Unfortunately, looking at the rest of our division, the Seahawks beat the Cardinals today, so they stay up top pretty convincingly at the moment. And the Rams just got a really, really good win over the Buffalo Bills in LA. And that's that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, because they put up 44 points on a good Bills team, which obviously last week was a rout for the 49ers. A little bit of a weird game, right? You're playing in an element game, but nonetheless, the Bills dominated the Niners. And this week, in a lot of ways, dominated the Bills. The Bills were down, I believe it was 17 points at one point, and they cut this one close. But ultimately, like, the Rams took care of business. So they're coming in here with even more of an expectation to make the playoffs because they have the better record. They've had a better season at this point. They've got a lot on the table too, a lot to play for. So you got the Rams on Thursday, and this is a game that if you as the Niners really want to make the playoffs or make a run at the playoffs, you really can't drop any of these last 4 weeks of the season. And especially with the Rams coming into your house, I know both, whether we're going here or we're going to SoFi, it's really a home game for the Niners both times, but they're actually coming to Santa Clara. And this is a win you got to take care of home field advantage. So get a win against the Rams on Thursday. Marcus and I will talk about that and kind of break that down and see what that means for the Niners if they can get a win. But it's going to be a tough game, so I'm looking forward to it. This has been the 49ers post-game series on the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at all our social medias down below. Chat with us with email, behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. We love talking to you guys. We appreciate you guys listening in every single week, listening to us talk about our favorite teams and cover everything to do with them. We really appreciate it. So I've been Benny the Jet. I got a Kings game to go catch right now. I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.